Okay, all you wonderful people, welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the community. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe button, and the notification bell, and then share this video as well. I'm releasing multiple videos a week, and about 90% on some videos of the people watching are not actually subscribed. So make sure you subscribe and you hit the notification bell. Share the video, like the video, comment on the video. And you can go to continuefreedom.com. You can sign up for my mailing list because as I get the merch, I know I've been talking about it for a long time, but it's a whole process to make sure I'm QCing all the products that I'm going to offer with the printers and all that stuff. When that comes available, everybody's going to know about it, and you're going to be able to get probably a discount on the first order. So we're going to talk about the Second Amendment today, something I am incredibly passionate about. For those of you that don't know, I'm a veteran. I'm a ardent supporter of our Constitution, and I believe that all of our constitutional rights are protected ultimately by the Second Amendment. I was reading Federalist 46, which I'll get into a little bit of it today, or I might touch on it, but they were essentially talking about federal and state authority, and the way what Hamilton believed was that the federal government could never muster a military large enough to overtake armed militia, armed people, an armed citizenry. And that remains true today. However, we're going to get into some of the finer points of that, and that for 100 years, the federal government has been trying to regulate firearms, and they've, in some cases, done a pretty good job of taking away our constitutional rights. But a Trump-appointed judge recently deemed part of the NFA unconstitutional. It's a big deal. But to start us off, let's go ahead, and some of these are Second Amendment specific, since that's the topic we're going to be talking about today. But some of these are just general political memes, but it's always fun to start off with a little bit of humor before we get into some very serious topics. Life hack: hide your firearm from the government by wrapping it in the Epstein client list. Isn't that true? Boy, it would be fantastic if we could, get a hold of that list. All these political players. Nope. So just hide your firearms in it. Unfortunately, all my firearms were lost in a boating accident. So, shout out Coleon Noir. I think he's the one who came up with that. Oh, and then here's a meme for you. Are you willing to die for your guns? Are you willing to die for your guns? Are you willing to die for your guns? And then the guy on the right. Are you willing to die for my guns? I'm willing to bet no, they are not. Now, if you want to talk about just what's being done, this is a general political meme. Below is a comprehensive list of things that have been built back better in the past 3.5 years. Shout out patriotpost.us. Don't know who they are. Don't know anything about them. I just found this on X. So if they're some weird organization, don't come after me for it. They posted a good meme. And the people that are going to take it away from us, should we really be that worried? You got your kids, your teachers, your military, your doctors, your city, your border, your money, and then your president. Oh, yeah. And how about that? Looking at the president down there at the bottom, laying on the beach. He was on vacation. Kamala Harris was conspicuously absent as well. The vice president and the person who's running to become president in 2024 were conspicuously absent from the memorial service for the 13 service members that died in Afghanistan. Yeah, he's laying on the beach, getting his blood swapped out, whatever else that is they're doing to try to keep him functioning. This is a great meme. This is actually like a year old, I think. But I've given a raccoon a gun. I shall post the results later. I don't get these people that have pet raccoons, man. I've trapped 2 raccoons in my backyard. They're cute and cuddly, but golly, those are some vicious. I've shot 2 of them when I was out hunting, climbing my tree, trying to get up in my tree stand. I had one that was rabid that I've killed 3 of them. I take that back at my hunting camp. But anyway, why do you need a gun in the first place? Well, here you go. For tyranny, there's your 1911, your shotgun for close-up tyranny, your rifle for far-away tyranny, and your AR-15 for lots of tyranny. Memes are such a great way to get your point across. They really are. Legal gun owners have over 200 million guns and 12 trillion rounds of ammunition. Seriously, people, if we were the problem, you'd know it. Isn't that true? Oh my goodness gracious. Like they're all the gun laws and things, they only affect the people who actually care about the law. What we have to remember is criminals by their very nature care nothing about laws. And we're going to talk about some criminal activity that's been going on right now. It's going to be part of my talk, but here we go. We're also talking about war. We're talking about World War III. Here's me and the boys on the way to Iran because the white women voted based on Taylor Swift's endorsement. I'm sorry, but if you're getting your political recommendations from Taylor Swift, you are looking in the wrong place. You should come here to Continue Freedom, and I will give you all the information that you need to make an informed decision, or as much as I possibly can. You have to do some work on your own. Everybody's got a little bit of homework. We've always got homework. And then what's the purpose of the Second Amendment? The Founding Fathers' purpose of the Second Amendment, shout out TPUSA, Turning Point USA. The Founding Fathers, here's the First Amendment. And in case someone tries to take that away, here's the Second Amendment. That's exactly right. I was reading, Federalist 46, and it's a numbers game, right? If you have enough armed people that can form militias, that can band together to fight off a tyrannical government, the federal government will never be able to muster a military large enough to do it. Now, federalization of police and partnerships with nefarious local police forces. Do I think that the federal government, in conjunction with the Chicago PD, the New York PD, any of those folks would, be able to enact tyranny? They would, but not across the entire country. Because I'll tell you what, I'm in East Tennessee, people, and not all, some maybe, but not enough of the East Tennessee cops are going to be banding together and federalizing, being under federal authority to make any kind of a difference. And I'm willing to bet we got some folks around here that would probably be like, all right, buddy, you're gone. You're out. You're fired. Nope, we ain't banding together to come after our own citizens. Well, why are we talking about the Second Amendment to begin with? Well, a federal judge, Trump-appointed federal judge, by the way, tosses machine gun possession case, calls ban unconstitutional. So this is from August 23rd. This is from Reuters. A federal judge has dismissed charges against a Kansas man for possessing a machine gun, saying prosecutors failed to establish that a federal ban on owning such weapons is constitutional. So the decision by U.S. District Judge John Brooms in Wichita on Wednesday appeared to mark the first time a court has held that banning machine guns is unconstitutional after the conservative majority U.S. Supreme Court in 2022 issued a landmark ruling that expanded gun rights. In that ruling, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, the Supreme Court established a new test for assessing firearm laws, saying restrictions must be, quote, consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. The Supreme Court clarified that standard in June as it upheld a ban on people subject to domestic violence restraining orders having guns, saying modern firearm restrictions need only a historical analog, not a historical twin, to be valid. So Brooms, an appointee of of Donald Trump, said prosecutors in Tamari Morgan's case failed to identify such a historical analog to support charging him with violating the machine gun ban. Essentially, what happened was this guy had a Glock switch, and a Glock switch can turn a semi-automatic Glock into an automatic Glock. And Congress first moved to limit machine guns through the National Firearms Act of 1934, which we're going to talk about, which was enacted after the weapons became commonly used by criminals during Prohibition. And then it went on in 1986 and so on and so forth. While prosecutors pointed to laws from the 1700s and 1800s barring the use of, quote, dangerous and unusual weapons, Broom said those historical examples focused on their use to terrorize the public, not simply possessing them in the first place. So yeah, they, during Prohibition, all the criminals were using machine guns, things that you could just order out of a catalog or buy out of a gun store, Thompson submachine guns and things, and BARs and things of that nature. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde. I think it was Bonnie that loved to carry the BAR, the Browning automatic rifle. And so they said, oh, this is terrorizing the populace, so we've got to ban it. Well, this kicked off a near century-long attempt by the left to take firearms away in general. And my only hope from this is that firearms will simply become cheaper. Because if you've looked at automatic weapons, you want to buy an Uzi, you want to buy a Ma Deuce, an M250 cal, it is, just massive. They say it's $15,000 to $20,000, but I believe the last I saw, and I was a little afraid to even be Googling it because I know, based on the content that I create, the government is closely watching everything that I'm searching on the internet. But I think that they're somewhere around $50,000, $60,000 is what you can expect to pay for a Ma Deuce or if you wanted to buy a 240 Bravo or any sort of, well, you can't buy a 240 Bravo, I don't think. Maybe you can, I don't know. But here's what happened. There's an estimated right now on the books about 20,000 gun laws, local to federal, in the United States. 20,000 gun laws. And so federally, we have the National Firearms Act. That's from 1934. So that was the tax, the $200 tax that they put on it. And it was the start, really what kicked off gun control. And this $200 tax and registration, by the way, at a time when the average household income was $1,500 a year. That's in 1934. And they put a $200 tax on automatic weapons. So then you get 1938, the Gun Control Act of 1938. That's what where we started to require federal firearms licenses. And then the Firearm Owners Protection Act in 1986. This expanded on the 1934 Act. And this was in a response to the assassination, part of what was used to justify it was the assassination of MLK and JFK. And it encompassed felons, mentally ill, illegal immigrants, drug users. Let's ask how, we'll take a look here on the impact that's had in places like Chicago. But it required firearm dealers to keep records. And remember, the ATF agents taking photos of gun logs in a lot of these places. This has happened in recent years. You've got FFLs, federal firearms licensees or licensors, that have to keep records of all the firearms that they sell. And they keep logs of them. And it also turned people into snitches, these FFLs into snitches, or anyone with an FFL, that you have to report the sale of multiple firearms at one time. Has this had the impact? Let's just go to that point. Has this had the impact that people think? No, it absolutely has not. And I could give you dozens and dozens and dozens of instances. An illegal immigrant who allegedly shot 2 NYPD officers at point-blank range, indicted on 20 charges. This is recently, by the way. Chicago shootings. This was in July of this year. At least 100 shot, 17 fatally in citywide holiday weekend gun violence, CPD says. And apparently my dog agrees, if you can hear her barking in the background. And so, has this had the impact that people wanted it to have, believed it was going to have? Look at what we see. These are, they specified illegal immigrants. This is a Venezuelan gang. Venezuelan gang in Colorado taking over entire buildings. But wait, I thought we had a law on the books. We have laws on the books to stop this. Here, you want another one? Here's another one. Oops.
Nigga, the Venezuelans is taking over. They just jacked them? Oh, me. These niggas is out here tripping. Bro, damn, they done made a mess and shit.
This is in Aurora, Colorado. Oops, sorry, I've got too many videos playing. Whoa. Okay, sorry, I had to fix that. So, we've got laws on the books, right? But criminals, by their very nature, care nothing about the laws. They don't care about the laws. And here we have them taking over entire buildings in Colorado. Armed illegal immigrants. So then we had the Brady Act in 1993, and this is where we got our background checks. And then we had the assault weapons ban in 1994, which, as you've seen in the statistics, accomplished absolutely nothing. In fact, there were more firearm sales after the assault weapons ban. But this has also given us a new term. So the term assault weapons, this is where it comes into play, and the Democrats started to use it. And then we had the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act in 2005. They had to pass a law that gave liability protection to firearms. So after 100 years of regulation... Golly, now the video just keeps playing. So after nearly 100 years of regulation, it didn't get better, it actually got worse, and then they had to jump in to protect the firearms manufacturers because our society got more litigious, got more violent, and we became, as people, less protected because of all of these, us law-abiding citizens, and because of things like gun-free zones and all of the local restrictions that firearm the people that hate firearms, the anti-Second Amendment people have put into place. And so keep in mind, these are just, by the way, these that I've read off are just the federal laws. At the local and state level, you see things like red flag laws, waiting periods, concealed carry permit requirements, assault weapons bans, like you have in California, weapon modification requirements. So you have all these weird accoutrements that you have to have on your weapon if you buy one in California, or you can't buy them at all if you're in places like Chicago, magazine restrictions, things of that nature, firearm registrations like I had to do in Hawaii. When I lived in Hawaii, when I was stationed out there, it was hauling every firearm that I took with me. Again, I don't have any anymore. I lost them all in a boating accident. But I had to carry all my firearms into the headquarters, and they document everything and assign it to a person. Then you had to keep it double locked in your house, so it was completely useless. And it all comes back to where our rights stand now as American citizens. Do we have the right to own firearms? Yes, we do. Are our rights limited in some places and more free in others? Yes, most definitely. I can go into I can go into a gun store right now in East Tennessee. I can have a background check done, fill out all the forms, and walk out with a gun. And that's, honestly, the shouldn't get any more restricted than that. But in Federalist 46, as I said before, Madison wrote that an armed populace would always be able to override a federal government that had overstepped its bounds. And I'm paraphrasing here. You can never muster a military large enough to, overthrow people who have the willingness. You can't overthrow people that have the willingness to prevent tyranny. And as a conservative, I use this all the time. Republicans use this all the time. Second Amendment purists use this all the time. But we have to ask ourselves, is a society with Wi-Fi, AC, iPads, TikTok, processed foods, and an obesity epidemic, are we really capable or willing to fend off the federal government if need be? Because we have people that are literally voting in opposition to President Donald Trump because of mean tweets, because of things he said 40 years ago. They care more about those mean tweets and his crass language than they care about preserving our constitutional rights and liberties. Are these the people do we have enough people? Even on the right, there's a lot of lukewarm people that are on the right. If it became tyrannical, I believe it is right now in a lot of ways, tyranny is already here, people, and we're going to talk about some of it. Would people really be willing to stand up to the federal government? How many people blindly followed the rules during COVID? That's tyranny. That was tyranny. Straight up tyranny. But are there too many estrogen-infused men in our society it's leaving us with not enough testosterone-infused men? Now, this is a fascinating study when we talk about this. This is really interesting. Testosterone induces a red shift in Democrats, a study shows. So this comes after Dana Bash argues that Democrats are trying to speak to men who might not be as she said, who might not be the testosterone-laden, gun-toting type of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan. Talking about Hulk Hogan being at the RNC. And understand that in 2024, it's okay to be a man comfortable in his own skin who supports a woman. Meaning a beta, right? So she's saying the Democrats are courting the beta males, which are many because testosterone levels in America are 100% dropping. There are study after study to show that testosterone, fertility, all these things are being affected in America. And there is, in fact, according to this article from SCNR, there is, in fact, research dating back more than a decade suggesting that higher testosterone levels are found in Republican men. So in 2011, Paul J. Zak, a professor at Claremont Graduate University, conducted a study examining the stability of political preferences among men during that presidential election season by administering testosterone to participants who, prior to dosing, stated the strength of their political affiliations. Zak's research found that the administration of testosterone caused Democratic men to shift to the right politically. If that didn't tell you, that speaks volumes, by the way. This idea that men need to become more feminine in order to be a an improved class of man or an improved type of man, being in touch with your feminine side, all that is a bunch of hogwash. I've learned this over the years. It's a bunch of hogwash. It's garbage. And after testosterone was administered to weakly affiliated Democratic men, they reported 45% warmer feelings towards Republican candidates for president, the study found. Our results demonstrate that testosterone induces a red shift among weakly affiliated Democrats. Well, if you've got low testosterone, you're weak to begin with. But nonetheless, here's my takeaway from this. Femininity vaccines. You want vaccine mandates? How about femininity vaccines? Mandate TRT for men. You want it? Come on. You want to be a man? You want to vote? Here, get your shot of testosterone. Jack up those testosterone levels, and maybe you'll start caring about individual rights and liberties. Oh my gosh. And this is really the difference in politics right now. So Republicans say individual responsibility, do things on your own, that independent masculinity. My mistakes are on me, and it's not the fault of someone else. And if I'm not making it, I'm doing something wrong. Democrats say, I deserve this. I can't make it because of someone else. I need to be in touch with my feminine side. Hogwash. It's hogwash. Is that too old school to use that term? I'm not that old. I'm only 43. Good gracious. But when you have a masculinity crisis, what do you get? Well, aside from Democrats, you get Democrats like this guy. You get the Vinman Twins. That's what happens when you have a masculinity crisis and everybody's got low T. Oh, you get weak, pathetic little men like the Vinman brothers. And of course, he's getting his comeuppance. I think the attorney general in maybe the attorney general in Virginia will actually come off the top rope onto this guy. But he's got a PAC. It's called Vote Vets. And if you follow it on X, it's just nothing but left-wing garbage masquerading as some veteran organization. But it's a political PAC is really all it is. And they shoveled a bunch of money to Alexander Vinman or to Eugene Vinman. And they were allowed to give $10,000 directly to a candidate. However, they reached their limit in May. And the PAC's continued communication support for Vinman campaign is being classified as an in-kind contribution. So they're helping spread the message. They're using their platform and their resources to help spread his message. And they consider this an in-kind contribution, and this would push him over the $10,000 threshold. So hopefully, well, and by the way, if you don't know who the Vinman brothers are, this is one of them. This is Eugene, very masculine name. The other one is Alexander, and Eugene were both whistleblowers when it came to Trump and his first impeachment. And these are Ukrainian-born guys. One of them obviously served in the military. Kudos to him for his service. But after taking off the uniform, well, actually, I would say while in uniform, he began to wipe his backside, clean his boots with the Constitution. And so he's, he wore the uniform, but he likes to throw out. He's like a Tim Walz kind of guy. He throws out his military service, but then all of his policies stand in complete opposition to the Constitution that he swore an oath to protect and defend. But this guy is threatening Elon Musk and saying, oh, yeah, Elon Musk should be wary of his, because of what happened to the CEO of Telegram. So I know I'm bouncing around here a lot, but bear with me. The Second Amendment stands as a barrier to our loss of all our other rights and liberties, to all the other amendments to the Constitution, to our Bill of Rights. And the First Amendment is a key piece of that. It's one, the Second Amendment, I think, is probably the most important, but the First Amendment is right there with it. The Second Amendment is so important because it's needed to, it's needed to protect the First Amendment. But the First Amendment is how we can spread our messaging to other people, how people can get the truth, not get government-sanctioned messaging like you have in Russia and China and other dictatorships and other authoritarian countries. But the Telegram CEO, who runs an encrypted app, was arrested in France because he wouldn't let them into the back end of his site, allowed them being the EU, to surveil the users of that platform, and they are saying that he is now culpable for the nefarious actions that have been taken on his platform, using his platform. And if that's the case, and this is the way the U.S. wants to go, because this is how Alexander Vinman sees this, that yes, this is absolutely how the U.S. should go. I mean, in his quote, free speech absolutist weirdos, he's a hate speech guy, right? He believes that we shouldn't allow hate speech. Hate speech is free speech, people. There is no such thing as hate speech. There is just speech. And we are supposed to be the discerning minds. We don't need it to go through a government filter. We don't need Alexander Vinman filtering our information or people of his ilk. But he's saying that Elon Musk should be worried because they want to, he's saying the quiet part out loud. Elon Musk has been a staunch advocate for our First Amendment rights. He has opened up an entire platform that is as close to him and Rumble are the two closest things you can find to actual free speech platforms, and Truth Social, and there's a couple other small ones out there. But by and large, X is going to become the next platform for true free speech in America, and they are going to come for him. And Alexander Vinman let it slip. But this is why we have a Second Amendment, because when they get desperate, when they get really desperate, when Donald Trump gets 90 million votes in this next election and they aren't able to cheat their way out of it, they're going to be shouting from the rooftops that this was all orchestrated by Elon Musk and so on and so forth. But they think that people who want free speech are weirdos. How in the world would you want to just be able to listen to anything? How in the world can you let somebody like Jared on Continue Freedom and have a podcast like that? It's shameful. Government censorship is a real important part of our platform, so say the Democrats. Because if the Democrats are given their way, people like myself, other conservative commentators, we would have no place to speak. And in a lot of ways, that's the case. You look at the mainstream media, right? This is why I don't think anybody should be getting their political recommendations from mainstream media. It is all entirely swayed. You are not getting the full picture. Because when people, even celebrities, some celebrities aren't safe, but Britney Mahomes, right? This is the tolerant left. All she did was like an Instagram post by Donald Trump, and they lambasted her. And Donald Trump, this was a post where he showed his platform, basically, and the 2024 GOP platform. She liked it, and she got crushed by people, but she didn't back down. After users on Instagram noticed Britney's like on Trump's post, she quickly faced criticism. In response, Britney addressed her haters in an Instagram story on Friday, though she did not specifically name those criticizing her. She said, honestly, to be a hater as an adult, you have to have some deep-rooted issues you refuse to heal from childhood, she wrote in her post. There's no reason your brain is fully developed and you hate to see others doing well. Kudos to her, by the way, for standing up to it. Most of the people do not. Most of the big personalities out there, you see apologies. It's almost like it's as predictable as gravity. That something is said and they come out and apologize. And she's like, no, I'm not apologizing. Good for her. I don't know. Obviously she's got some conservative leanings if she likes Donald Trump's platform. We are fighting against authoritarianism. Authoritarianism, like we saw in COVID, and like Massachusetts is testing the waters with authoritarianism. Oh, it's voluntary right now. Voluntary evening lockdowns to curb the spread of a deadly mosquito-borne disease. Oh, several towns in Massachusetts have instituted voluntary evening lockdowns in an effort to prevent the spread of Eastern equine encephalitis, or EEE, a mosquito-borne disease that can be deadly to humans. The Oxford Board of Health voted on Wednesday to recommend that residents remain indoors after 6 p.m. until the end of September, following reports from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health of the first human case of EEE. We have seen so many reports of this illness, that illness. We've got monkeypox on the horizon. We had the Black Plague, having an appearance in, I believe it was Colorado. We've got mosquito-borne illnesses, probably from the trillions of mosquitoes that Bill Gates dumped over Florida, I think is where it was, over the Everglades. He released, one of his labs released trillions or billions of mosquitoes. Says also from the guy who says, well, with vaccines, we can do some great things with population reduction. Quote, by the way. This is why we have a Second Amendment. This is why we have a First Amendment. But they're going to try to take it every year, every election cycle. Here we go. And the American people are starting to see it. This is why Donald Trump is making huge headway. Majority of voters think illegal immigrants are likely to vote in the presidential election. I mean, think about where we are here, people. Think about this. A majority of Americans, most people say, yep, 54%, by the way, of registered voters believe it is at least somewhat likely that illegal immigrants will cast ballots. Specifically, 27% of respondents said it was somewhat likely, while another 27% described it as very likely. People that are not citizens voting in our elections, over half. The poll also highlighted strong opposition to the idea of allowing immigrants to vote in federal elections, with 75% of respondents expressing disapproval. Additionally, an overwhelming 87% of those surveyed are in favor of requiring voter identification for elections. So on one hand, you've got Democrats saying it's racist, it's bigoted, it's terrible to have voter ID laws, and yet poll after poll, time after time, registered voters are asked, and they say, of course, I have to have a license, I have to have an ID to buy booze, to buy cigarettes, to do just about anything. I have to have a job. I have to have a license. If I want to drive a car to get to and from work, I have to have a license. But it's terrible if we do that at the voting booths. Do you see the deception now? Does everybody see the deception? Because they've got us divided on some silly things, right? Some silly things. And there's, thankfully, there are some great minds out there who are, they have us divided on silly things, but I think that there's also the Republicans who are back on their heels. And we have to go to the people, the wise people in our society, to get our information. Thomas Sowell being one of those, one of my favorite people on the planet. And who writes books like it's going out of style. I think he's done like a book a year for, I don't know how long it's been. I mean, he churns these things out like crazy. And if you haven't read it, a phenomenal book. It was White Liberals and Black Rednecks is one that he wrote. It was great, but it was all about essentially the cultures and how these cultures were impacted over time and over history. It was a fascinating book. Highly recommend it to anybody that wants to get a deeper understanding of things. But Thomas Sowell in an August 22nd op-ed for the Wall Street Journal titled "Republicans Better Get on the Ball," Sowell, a revered figure among conservatives, delivered a blunt message to his political allies. He said, if the Republicans lose this year's election against an administration whose policies have been rejected by the public in poll after poll, they will deserve to lose. And this is 100% true. Sowell points to the Democrat policymaking of the past 4 years, which he argues has led to economic difficulties and unchecked violence. In his view, given the current political landscape, the election should not be close between Democrats and Republicans. And yeah, 100%. Some Republicans, may say that it is because the media are on the side of the Democrats and suppress or distort the facts accordingly. Others may say that the universities have become indoctrination centers, promoting the kind of ideologies that favor the Democrat agenda, Sowell wrote. But even if we concede all that, the fact is that a similar situation existed back in the days when Ronald Reagan won 2 consecutive presidential elections by landslides. How did he do it? He asked. He did it by addressing the voting public as if they were adults who could understand an issue. If you explain it to them in plain English instead of in political jargon or snappy quips. This guy's 94 years old, by the way. We are not going to have Thomas Sowell for a whole lot longer, and the world will become a less great place when Thomas Sowell is gone. This man has been a voice of reason and of brilliance for so long. Sorry, I'm fanboying over him, but I just love listening to this guy. And I've listened to him. You can go back on the internet, by the way, and you've got decades of his commentary, and it is unbelievable. Every single bit of it is unbelievable. Him and Milton Friedman, I love it. And he was a student of Milton Friedman. So things are dire. Things are complicated for this election cycle. But at the end of the day, no matter how tyrannical things may become, we do have a fallback. And that fallback is one that we need to support wholeheartedly, whether you are left or right. This is something, Even when the Democrats who right now, they think that they are immune. When you get the hive mindset and you're in a Democrat city, you think that you're immune from all the liberal policies that you're pushing. You don't understand the second and third order effects. And you might get them pushed through. The Democrats may get some more authoritarian legislation pushed through if Kamala Harris comes into office. But at the end of the day, if we lose our Second Amendment rights, that's when things get dark. That's when things get really, really bad. But for the time being, we do have a bulwark against full tyrannical government, and that is the Second Amendment. The question is, are our people willing to stand up when it's bad now, but when it gets really bad? Or are we willing to wake up? Are we able to wake up and say, we're going to just stave this off? Let's just start voting conservative. Let's start finding the most conservative, government shrinking, fiscally conservative, constitutionally minded candidates that we can and put those folks into office. That's the question. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.